And it is well, we are going through an amazing, in terms of impactful area, that is the COVID time in the last 2 years plus, and it's keep on getting longer and longer. And because of that, we had to adapt a lot of stuff. And we adapt ourselves, being consultant or being professor, we adapt in our work, and we are also adapting in our services and proposals that we have today. So this part will be split in two. We're gonna hear from Glenn from Panama first, and after we're gonna move to the Serbian National Supercluster team. That is an amazing fruit of the COVID time, where Ljubisa and Roberto were able to work together, being in totally different time zone and with different market towards a solution. So this is the plan for today. We have a smaller group than what we had before. So we're going to have some space as well from question. You can type in or you can ask them out loud if time's allowed. I think that's it. For the rest, we are recording this one as well, so we'll be part of the report. Later on, it will be sent out. And I think, yeah, we can save some minutes and give the word to our panelists, and starting with Glenn from beautiful Curacao. Hello.
Yes, thank you, Rico, and everybody. Thanks for joining. Yes, it's indeed a very, very sunny day this morning here in Curacao. Very fortunate to have been able to spend the last couple of days here. It's my home island. I'm born and raised here. So, but now I live in Panama City. Let me see if I can share my screen. No. Here we go. Share content. Okay. You let me know when you see something. Yep. It's coming.
Yes, it's loading.
Loading.
Yes.
Please. Yep. We're there. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. How do I get this to? There we go. There we go. Perfect. So my story is really what has happened to me the last I would say 6 months or so with regards to this transition that I've made after being a partner with KPMG for over probably close to 2 decades. I've had the opportunity to be involved with KPMG and their advisory practice in several roles. One of the key roles that I had was starting up the consulting business in Puerto Rico. And then after that, for doing that for like 5 years, I moved to Panama. And after a short stint with a Oracle business integrator, I was asked to rejoin KPMG as the head of advisory and innovation out of Panama City, Panama. So as you can see, I'm traveling around the Caribbean region. So for some reason, I'm very much in love with this part of the world. So it's a great place to be. Okay, so with regards to the timing, I would try to be brief, but definitely want to touch upon 4 different points of view and changes that led me to take this decision. First and foremost, and we are all seeing this, a disruption in the traditional strategy consulting industry. I was part of the Global Innovation Network for KPMG, where we had leading and large practices like the US, UK, Germany, Australia, China, all having the same similar issues with regards to how do you move from one business model to the next, and certainly when you're a predominantly audit-driven firm, how do you do that? COVID, like you said, Enrico, created this space where we had the opportunity to reset and rethink and find our purpose. I decided quite early on to not go into the route of watching the negative news and following the number of COVID cases. I took a route where I said, well, I need to get out of this pandemic better than I came in. And therefore, let's look at what are the possibilities coming out, what are the changes that are coming out. I'm going to touch upon my journey, how it started, how I got to know Roberto and Carlos, my partners for Strategy Tools, how I enrolled into the network, met Christian, and the rest is really history as to my excitement and my belief in what we are all as a group trying to accomplish. And then I will touch upon something that Carlos, Roberto, and I have been working on in the last month, where we met physically for the first time since I joined them in Costa Rica, where we touched upon some of the things we want to accomplish with Strategy Tools. Okay, so talking about disruption, well, definitely strategy as innovation. That's why I like the two lens of strategy. It's very, very clear the dilemma that we're facing in terms of strategy. I've done multiple strategy projects where the basis of your study is historic data, not so much the data that is, let's say, weak in terms of weak signals. At KPMG, we have tried to do this by focusing and creating a signals repository, which is in essence tapping into our global network and started to understand what weak signals are out there and how do you interpret them in terms of the impact on your business. In that sense, our innovation network was very much involved in that. And quite frankly, due to the pandemic and during the pandemic, we were very quickly in coming up with a number of signals and changes. And one of them has been, the work from home phenomena, which we have all seen as having a tremendous impact on how we move forward. So the other thing is that, how do you deal with business leaders when you are in a state of impermanence, meaning that the conditions are constantly changing, and therefore your historic data is really not as relevant as it was in the past. And I think Rita McGrath, Seeing Around Corners, is a great example of how to deal with these uncertainties when it's not at all clear. And then, like I said, dual transformation at KPMG is like probably with many of the big four audit companies, a huge challenge. This is not unique for just this type of industry. It's probably something that we're seeing in multiple cases where you have to deal with an existing business model and try to transform towards a growth or explore business model. And that's the other thing that I very quickly understood from Strategy Tools with the strategy intro. So I'm going to touch upon some of the things that I've seen and how I've used them. But this is the initial discussion internally and externally that I've had in terms of disruption of the strategy. I was kind of fed up with writing another report and not having clients implement it and spending so much time and valuable resources to come up with strategies that are unfortunately not being implemented. So there was something wrong, and I felt that our model had to change. I think everybody which is currently thinking about redesigning, refiring, redirecting, resetting their purpose, need to look at this model called Ikigai. It's something that I was introduced to by a friend of mine, a former CFO for Philips in LATAM. He kind of was the first one to help me kind of put things into perspective. Did led me to create my own purpose and establish my own purpose. And it's fundamentally a very clear and useful model to kind of put your things into perspective and understand the why. I think Simon Sinek, as another great person that I would recommend you to follow, has said it very, very clear. You need to start with the why. And I think this probably was the first time in my 20-plus career that I've had the time to rethink and really assess what I want to do. And at the end of the day, I came up with this purpose, which is to impact and inspire innovation-driven entrepreneurs and corporations. So I really felt that at that crossroad, there was a tremendous opportunity to eliminate friction, to explore new opportunities, and to allow corporations to embrace innovation through ecosystems. The other very important point is mindset. I think mindset is probably the most important capability that we all need to develop as we move through uncertainty, right? So what is your compass? What is your north? And how, if you have your purpose clear, how do you create this notion of a mindset? And I've been involved with Abundance 360, which is a network of professionals, CEOs, and innovation leaders, led by Peter Diamandis. He's an author of several books, and he talks about this notion of a mindset. So the abundance mindset, exponential mindset, longevity mindset, and having a moonshot. How do you create your own moonshot? And these are things that I think encourage me to take this bold step and leave a very rewarding and exciting job and kind of follow my own purpose. But it wasn't enough. I had to have an additional push, because one thing is to think about these things, but the other thing is really to put it into practice. And I think Tim Grover, who you see here, and me in the session, Tim Grover, by the way, so if you don't know Tim Grover, he used to be the performance enhancer, performance coach for Michael Jordan, for Kobe Bryant, for Dwayne Wade. I'm a huge basketball fan, but it's not just about basketball. It's really about that winning mentality, going all in, and what it takes to really, take these bold steps. Because you have to burn your bridges. It's not as if, you could do this half in, half out. And yes, of course, it's always good to have plan B. It's always good to have a safety net. But for it to really become transformational, you really need to leave things behind and understand that everything that is supporting you, the people you surround yourself with, the time you invest in, needs to help you to win. And I think this is a great example of how I was motivated to take this new step. I became a member of the Down and Dirty network, and it's fascinating the number of people that you meet from all walks of life that are going through this concept. I started then looking at, okay, so if I want to do this, what are some of the things that what are the needs? And I came up with this concept of a personal brand. I know this is very, very important when you start your own business, to build your personal brand. I think this is the future for most of us consultants and scale up coaches, that we have a personal brand, even when you're associated with a network such as ST Global Network. I think it's important that you identify your focus and you work on your brand every single day. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I try to be as active as possible on other platforms, but I think predominantly LinkedIn is where I've been quite successful in obtaining a reasonable size following. The other thing that I noticed is that innovation is not enough. You need to have investments as well. And in the early stages, I was very fortunate to be offered to be part of a investment activity in some startups. Currently, I hold investments in 4 startups, which I now have created this notion of 3H Ventures, which is really a vehicle that allows me to do certain investments. So I invest time, convert it into equity, and participate in shares. But I also knew that consulting and coming from a consulting business is not enough. We need to create a leverage model. We need to create some form of content and value generation, which would not require time. And that's why 3H Media and 3H Experiences were created. These are all ideas. They still need to be formalized, but they give you a sense of where I was and where I am in terms of my thinking and how I see this evolving. Currently, I'm predominantly focused on 3H Innovation and 3H Ventures, and that's how it started. So my journey with strategy tools is really a fascinating one, because when I was thinking about moving from KPMG and embracing my own, why and purpose, I quickly touched upon my network of people. We all know that your network is your network, and therefore the value of your network is critical as you move to these various stages. And I was fortunate enough to at an early stage talk to Carlos and Roberto. And the first thing they said, Glenn, if you're doing this, you have to join us. And they were very, very gracious and open to introduce me to Christian and the rest of the Strategy Tools team. I was pretty excited once I did the Global Coaches workshop to follow on with Scale Up and BTC. These are two certifications that I hold very dear to my heart in terms of how they've been able to help me structure my thought process with tools, methods, techniques. I still know that I have a long way to go, but predominantly on the BTC front, which is really my pedigree, is where I come from, that I think there is a tremendous opportunity for us to work on. So then, you have this idea, you've certified, you've prepared yourself. How do you get your first client? And I think this is also one where you have to truly believe in your capabilities. You have to truly believe in your ability to help companies and business leaders and founders and CEOs. And I think here again, it's through word of mouth. I'm now currently helping a logistics company kind of redefine their growth and their explore phases. They want to bring in, and that's why this go-to-market presentation by Donald was so interesting, because that is exactly where they are. This is a business that is growing, and they want to expand their team. They're focusing predominantly on sales and business development and go-to-market. But before they can offer this person a package, they have to understand where they want to go. So that's where I'm helping them with. The second one is a project that I'm starting next week, which is a mid-sized bank. They just acquired another bank right before COVID, and then COVID hit and everything stopped. They had to quickly move into, how do we continue on and with the business? So a lot of focus on contingency, not on strategy. Now that things are kind of more under control, they have reached out to me and said, you know what, Glenn, can you help us with innovation or innovation strategy? And most importantly, how do we bring the board of directors on this journey with us? Because it's a very traditional bank. We have just been through a merger with another bank. So our appetite to change things is not really there. However, we know that this is very, very critical for us to stay relevant as things start to happen. The bank also had two opportunities to invest in fintech companies. They weren't ready for that. And I think my role here is to really help them, kind of define that minimum innovation strategy using transformation journey and transformation roadmap. And then finally, I was asked by the American Chamber of Commerce, and I know Roberto and Carlos, we have a great opportunity to work with the American Chamber of Commerce in Costa Rica as well. This one in Panama, they had a trade mission to Chicago. As you know, Chicago is becoming one of the new innovation hubs in the US and even in the world. And it was a fascinating experience to take CEOs and CFOs, innovation leaders from both government and from large corporations to that mission. Really help positioning most of the things that we have been talking about. So, again, if we want to wrap things up and start looking at, okay, so how do we build strategy tools, LATAM? We need to decide where we want to play and how to win. And I think where we want to play is definitely on the cluster side of things, but we cannot forget corporate, because at the end of the day, that's where the resources are. That's where the funding really comes from, and that's where probably the needs are as big as anywhere else. The startup ecosystems are going to be important for us, because that will provide linkage with corporate innovation and cluster development. We also need to be very careful in finding the right prospects and identifying opportunities. even with Javier and others in other parts of the world, in Colombia and other parts of the world, as we're starting to build this partner network, we are limited in resources. So it's very important for us to understand that. And then, again, we need to gain market share, in my opinion. And this is something we discussed with Carlos and Roberto, startup ecosystems cluster and corporate innovation. So more to come. This is still work in progress, and hopefully we'll be able to present this to the rest of the team as we, finalize the overall strategy. And in conclusion, again, it's all about winning. I mean, not just follow your passion. I think you have to go all in to win and to be successful at what you do. This doesn't mean that you just blindly go into, a next phase. It's about creating habits. It's about, every single day finding new ways to improve and work at your craft and become very, very good at something that will help you, be successful. So with that, I'm open for questions. Let me see if I can go back.
Thank you, Glenn. That was inspiring. And didn't say in 6 months' time.
Yes.
Very good. So Jacobo wants, what about having a Latin blog page?
Yes, I think that's a great idea. Is there an echo, or is it just me? Yeah, I think this is something that we need to work on. I mean, if you look at the study that Javier just presented, it's something that we need to start looking at more Latam basis. I know Roberto has been working very closely with clusters in various parts of the region, but more importantly, if you look at corporate innovation, there's really nothing out there. I mean, just follow the transformation, principles, and you see that there are so many white spaces that are really not covered by corporations. One of them is this notion of understanding ecosystems. They simply don't. And the other part, which is also, in my opinion, lacking, is corporate venture capital. We're starting to see more and more happening, but they're still at a very, very early stage. And I think that's the future, in my opinion, looks very, very bright for all of us, by the way.
Thank you. Any question? We can take one question if you have.
Thank you, Hugo.
If not, I'm going to ask you.
Maybe I'll just make a comment. Maybe also advertise myself for the next session. But I want to build on that. Indeed, it's a great connection, and I see similarities. What you, Glenn, saying in terms of how you can leverage strategy tools into building your practice. So very, very encouraging and also inspiring. I have some ideas noted. I think that we need to stay connected just to share experiences.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
Yeah. So one point, maybe you don't know, like we are developing this bridging, because I think bridging is what's happening a lot for the partner community. And when Glenn was mentioning his banking, it was like, hey, who we have in the community that could help me out with some banking that has been using the strategy tool. So Greg and Javier, they're like chatting with the Glenn and cross-pollinating ideas and experience together. This is one stuff that I love about this, that we should do more. And the second stuff that I like as well, it is this Latam group, which I think is the first pod, I call it, or little like group of people working together with strategy tools. So not a solo consultant, but like multiple of them with an agreement between them. And I think that will be a much easier way to go to market and to take out contract than what will be going solo. And I know this by myself as well. So I think we can choose geography, we can choose a market area or segment that we can work on. but there's definitely a lot of untapped potential into making our brains together, going out together with strategy tools. So that said, Glenn, I think we're hitting 25 on the minute. So really thank you for that. Really inspiring as you turn it around, and that your big decision and how you execute on this and the pipeline that you have. So that's really a lot to learn from you. So we love to hear you more. And I think we're going to dedicate time as well in further session and the partner commit know and understand what key point we could replicate for different other partner if you're willing to. So thanks again, Glenn.
Yeah, as a final words, Enrico, and thank you again, Christian, Enrico, and the entire strategy tools team for allowing for me to share this journey. What I see going forward in terms of corporate innovation is innovation leaders starting to understand that this is not, something that they can do on their own. That's number one. Number two, finding, the right support from leadership, from their board is critical. And having this mindset of, and that's why I like strategy intro so much, and you have the three, areas to focus on, is critical as you move forward. So it's basically telling them, you know what, your portfolio of investment in innovation needs to gradually move to much more of a balanced, core growth and explore type focus. And at the beginning, it's got to be predominantly core because they have to find, the right support. But you have to work every single day on convincing management and boards to continue to fund these things that we all know at the beginning will fail, but eventually it will help you with the transformation.
Great. Thank you for the closing words, Glenn.